disconnected from its membership, and that concerns me. The Law Society really seems to be floating and being pushed in whichever way, certain benchers want to push it with no direction. And that is why I would encourage all of you to vote, and vote for fresh leadership, fresh experience, some fresh faces to really point the ship that is the Law Society in the right direction. We need to have benchers, first of all, that have a broad representation. And what I mean by that is in terms of solicitors and litigators particularly. Litigators tend to be overrepresented among benchers, and so we need to have solicitors there to understand the needs of solicitors. We need benchers, as Monica mentioned, who understand that the legal landscape has really shifted. Okay, we need to see people who understand innovative practice, procedures, innovative technology, innovative ways to deliver legal services to the public. Benchers who really have a vision of the law in general and where this profession is going over the next 4 years. I mean, the next 4 years are going to be very crucial in terms of where we're going. Benchers who are aware of what the other jurisdictions are doing and willing to learn from them. I mean, in terms of innovative practice, Australia has floated a law firm. Slater and Gordon is a very successful law firm in Australia that you can buy shares in. The UK is provided Legal Services Act, which also allows law firms to float, allows for franchises of firms, allows for all sorts of different methods to practice law and provide cost-effective legal services to the public and provide access to justice. My background as a legal author, a solo practitioner, as a single father, and as a business person really allow me to bring a wide set of perspectives and experience to convocation. And that's why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. And Susan Hare, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm Susan Hare. Welcome, everybody. I guess my initial tag was a Northern lawyer, and that's exactly what I am. And I intend to impart some Northern know-how to convocation. I believe that I'm a thinker and a doer, and I think that's what I can bring to convocation. I am a sitting bencher. I was elected for the first time the last election, and I hope to finalize some of the work I've been working on as a bencher. I'm a sole practitioner on Manitoulin Island, which is between Sudbury and Manitoulin in Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie in Lake Huron. And I have articled many students, 2 of which have stayed with me for a good length of time as associates and then gone on to do great things. My principles when I was articling, I think imparted to me the idea that we all should give back to our legal community and to our community as a whole. They as well articled many students in Sudbury, Richard Ferland and Don Kuyak. And I think that's where I adopted the idea that I should be articling students. As well, articling students give you, they revitalize a practice. They have energy, they have new ideas, they're just great to have around, but we don't have enough in the North. I've received some resume books from a couple of law schools, and I think that's one good way for the law schools to assist the students, because it gives you an idea of who you may be talking about hiring. As well, I think I can bring innovation because I have done so myself. I was quite concerned in coming to practice in Northern Ontario as to access to justice. And so I worked with our local Legal Aid Ontario area director, and we set up a roving clinic, we called it at the beginning, which was, it gave legal advice, free legal advice to 14 different communities. And of course I wouldn't go to 14 every month, but we spread it out over a period of time. So I am very aware of access to justice issues, especially in the North. In my term as bencher, I've sat on professional development and competence, which is the licensing issues and others. I've sat on the finance committee because I like to know where the money is and how things operate. And I also sat on the Equity and Aboriginal Issues Committee. I'm an Ojibwe lawyer, and I chaired the Aboriginal Bar Working Group. We've presented a report, one of which the main recommendation is for networking and mentoring. And mentoring is one of the ideas I hope people will think more about, and in a more substantive way. We have a mentoring program, but in my view, it's not as good as it could be. And I'm hoping to improve it along with some other colleagues on at the Law Society, and hopefully some who run and get elected as well, if we are so lucky. Mentoring is really important for new lawyers, and I think that we have a graying of the bar problem all over Ontario, and mentoring should be provided to new lawyers. I think that would ease practice audits, the responsibilities that come out of that. I think it would ease probably our insurance rates, and as well it would strengthen the unity of between the newer bar and the older bar. It would just strengthen our profession as a whole. But I think it has to be substantive. I think it has to be improved. So mentoring is one of the things I hope to finalize and work on towards if I'm so lucky to be elected in this election. As well, in terms of innovative ways of providing services in the North, I do believe that unbundling is already happening in our area anyway. People can't, a lot of clients simply can't afford to pay for an ongoing lawyer with a big retainer, and they will often come and give you part of a question or ask you to review things. And as long as your retainer is succinct and detailed, it is another way to increase access to justice in Ontario. So I think that there has to be diversity at convocation. There has to be new lawyers, young lawyers who are willing to put themselves up, to stand up and be counted, and come and sit at convocation and share ideas. I think that's another revitalization we need at convocation. And over the past term, we changed some of the governance structures to get to make it more friendly to more and diversified lawyers and young lawyers coming to convocation. So those are my initial comments, and I'm looking forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And now we'll turn it over to Catherine McKenna, Executive Director of Canadian Lawyers Abroad.
Hi there. Thanks very much, Monica and Glenn, for organizing this, because this is an issue that I think is really key to the future of the profession. So very briefly, Canadian Lawyers Abroad, we're a charity that uses law to improve lives. We do projects in the developing world and in Canada's north in the areas of good governance, rule of law, and human rights. And you may be wondering, why do I care about this issue? Well, I spend a lot of time speaking to law students who are trying to decide what they're going to do with their law degree. And they are considering all sorts of options, firms, going into government, working with NGOs. And one big concern that they all have is articling. And it's not just a concern about whether they'll get an articling position. Clearly that's a huge concern because we have a shortage of articling positions. I think the consultation report that the Law Society did said that each year amongst people who enroll in the Law Society course, so there would be other people that aren't included, 55 to 75 don't find an articling position during that year. Some of them, are successful later on. So we have a shortage, but we also If you look at the stats, and these are not my stats, once again, from this report, 60% of articling positions are in, what you would call larger firms, so 11 or more lawyers, and 71% are in the Greater Toronto area. And once again, from this report, a disproportionate number of the students that are not finding articling positions are Aboriginal, Francophones, visible minorities, and foreign trained lawyers. So we not only have a numbers issue, we have an equity issue. And speaking as a competition lawyer, I think that we have an issue when it comes to whether articling has become an unreasonable barrier to entry to the profession. We don't, when you get into law school, you get in based on your marks, and the school makes an assessment of whether you meet the requirements. But articling, whether you get an articling position, has much more to do with whether you're a good fit with a firm than whether you're the best candidate. And I know lots of good students that I've met have had great difficulty finding articling positions, either because they're not necessarily interested in the big firm option, or because they just weren't seen to be a good fit. And I think that that is of great concern. It should be of great concern to the profession. So I think it's great that we're having a chance to have a discussion about it. And I guess the question is, what do you do? I've floated the idea of abolishing articling. I've actually written a piece on that. And the feedback I got was, a lot of lawyers just said, well, that's ridiculous. Suddenly you're going to have all these, lawyers out there that don't know what they're doing, and that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Well, maybe. I think that there's a lot of students who are now getting they're getting training in school, practical training. They're working at clinics, so they are getting experience that way. And there's ways to mentor students or to have continuing legal education obligations, which is a requirement now from the Law Society. So I think there's ways to get around that problem. But I just think right now the system isn't working. So it's not good enough to say, well, we have to have articling when we have a system that isn't really meeting the needs of the legal profession and is leaving some people out to dry. As a general point, I think that we also have a bit of a disconnect. If you spend time reading legal publications, going to conferences, spend a lot of time talking about the graying of the bar. So we have this lack of lawyers. We need more lawyers to go to work in smaller areas. We have an access to justice issue. The middle class, it's now becoming increasingly difficult for even the middle class to be able to afford lawyers. And then we have this issue of legal aid that's falling apart, and then what we should be doing in terms of pro bono work.